In Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, the Elder Brain is described as the final stage of the Illithid or Mind Flayer lifecycle. They're massive brains with dark tentacles, submerged or otherwise floating in a brine that gives them nutrients and allows them to project their significant psionic powers. They're typically found at the center of an Illithid colony or city, where they can best send out their telepathic messages to all Illithids in the colony. As previously mentioned, the Elder Brain does not control Illithids directly, as they are all individuals, but it does coordinate their efforts and fill both their waking minds and dark dreams with visions of Illithid supremacy and conquest. They're created when an elderly Mind Flayer finally sheds its mortal shell and becomes brain matter alone, being added to the special brine in which the Elder Brain will one day sit. Once enough of these long-dead brains have been amassed, they amalgamate into a singular mass of brain matter that reforms and comes to life as an Elder Brain. While there can be multiple Elder Brains in a colony, this is exceedingly rare, as Mind Flayers that die have their brains added to the current Elder Brain to increase its power, instead of being used to create another. The 5th edition Elder Brain has an AC of 10 and 210 HP. They have amazing mental stats and saving throws, as well as a variety of skills. They can sense any creature with an intellect of at least 4 within 5 miles, and they have 3 legendary resistances as well as general magic resistance. They can have up to 10 creatures telepathically linked to them at one time, communicating separately or all together. In combat, they hit with a tentacle, dealing 6 to 34 damage and automatically grappling the target. At the start of this target's turn, it's dealt an additional 6 to 13 psychic damage. The Elder Brain can do this to up to 4 targets at one time. They can also use Mind Blast, which forces all targets in a 60-foot radius around them to pass an int save. If failed, they take 10 to 55 psychic damage and are stunned for 1 minute. The Elder Brain can also connect to incapacitated creatures, seeing and hearing all things they do, until the link is broken, and they can also sense the thoughts of such creatures similar to the Detect Thought spell. Their legendary actions are the exact same as their regular actions, allowing them to essentially have multiple turns per round, and their lair actions are all about crowd control, summoning a wall of force, giving an ally inspiration, or rooting an enemy player to the ground. As a DM, I would use the Elder Brain as a final boss of an Illithid-heavy campaign or section of a campaign. I would have it fighting alongside a couple of Illithids, perhaps some spellcasting Illithids, as in the lore it makes sense that the center of a hive mind would be well protected. Keep in mind that Illithids are dangerous on their own, being able to one-shot creatures who are incapacitated, and the Elder Brain has abilities to proc this throughout the battle. On its turn, I would have the Elder Brain use Mind Blast every time it's available, as those who fail the save take massive damage and become stunned, making them prime targets for the other Illithids and for the Elder Brain's legendary actions. I would then use legendary actions to perform a tentacle attack, with a preference for stunned targets, to mete out damage and further crowd control. The Psychic Link and Sense Thoughts abilities are more for outside of combat, so I wouldn't waste any actions on them in a fight. For lair actions, I would always start with a wall of force, to create a barrier that separates team members, or to further corral players into bad places on the battlefield. I would then keep concentration on that and use subsequent lair actions to alternate between anchoring enemies and giving inspiration to allies, only recasting Wall of Force when the previous one has dropped. From there, I would allow the Illithids and other allies of the Elder Brain to fight the players, making a truly dangerous and memorable finale to your Mind Flayer campaign. The Elder Brain, much like most of the aberration creatures in D&D, are likely inspired by the collective mythos of H.P. Lovecraft, especially the Titus Crow series by Brian Lumley. In this series, Titus Crow fights against the Chthonians, massive burrowing worms with tentacles on their toothy maws that have powerful psychic abilities they use to control and dominate humanity. Lumley has stated that inspirations for Titus include Doctor Who and Van Helsing, and that the Chthonians in the Crow books were meant to serve as a terrifying hive mind creature that literally worms its way through the earth and into the minds of people, doing so to prepare them for the coming of the Outer Gods. The series features many Cthulhu cycle Outer Gods as well as their mortal and immortal allies, and culminates in a massive battle between Crow, his allies, the neutral-aligned denizens of Dreamworld, and the forces of darkness who worship the inevitable end and its Outer Gods. A key component to all of these tales, and to the Chthonians especially, is a hive mind-like society ruled by a central brain, in the form of an Elder God or one of their direct operatives. In comparing the monster to the Cthulhu mythos, we find that the Elder Brain takes the overall concept of mind flayers, brain parasites, and so forth created by Gary Gygax, and gives them an Elder God-type ruler that not only acts as their central brain, but is a brain in form and function. The Elder Brain is the ultimate endgame for an Illithid campaign, and can be one of the most terrifying mid-level bosses that your players have ever seen. If you enjoyed that video, please leave a like and comment below, and consider subscribing to the channel. You can also join the Patreon for $1 a month to access videos days before they're posted here, as well as other exclusive stuff like short stories, videos, and more.